Kevin in Mill Creek, Washington writes, he says, "Hey Paul, I used your latest book, The Audiophile's Guide, The Stereo, and its CD to set up my speakers. I like a wide soundstage, so I followed your steps. I have 2 speakers, and I barely understand a soundstage extending to the outer sides of the speakers. But on some tracks, I hear sounds to the sides of my head where there are no speakers at all. I've asked friends if they hear the same thing, and they say yes with little enthusiasm. So I suspect they are humoring the audio nut and planning their exit." Oh my God. "Have you experienced such a thing? If so, how can this happen?" Well, first off, let's remember that everything that we hear in a stereo presentation is an illusion. And in that illusion we have, it's simple, but it's complicated. It's simple because when we have binaural sound, two sources of sound properly done, each ear hears a slightly different signal. And that's the way that we can tell that that finger snap is closer to my left ear than it is to my right ear, because the sound hits my left ear first. My head, big old head, blocks the sound in the higher frequencies, and this ear receives a delayed signal from that's also been frequency changed, okay? Because my head has blocked some of the high frequencies. Or if someone's standing right in front of me, both ears get the same thing at the same time, unimpeded by any frequency change. And that's essentially how the whole thing works. Now, add to that the room. So in our room, we've got sound coming out of the 2 speakers that's bouncing off the walls. Our walls typically are not symmetrical, and so that is delaying, by the differences in the walls, the sound coming from the speakers, which hits our ear first, and our brain says, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, well, and you know, sound travels at 1 foot per millisecond. So you can calculate it out. You can, you know, how many feet away further is the sound coming from the speaker all the way to the wall, then bouncing off it, distorting the frequency response and the phase response, and then finally a delayed signal hitting your ear. And add to that the ceiling and the walls behind you, etc., etc., etc. It's complex. That's why I say it's simple, and yet it's complex. So to create the illusion that we want of speakers disappearing, of a nice wide soundstage that goes beyond the edges of the speaker, you have to do your setup kind of the way that I explained in brief in the Audiophile's Guide, The Stereo. And now, as by the time you're watching this, my new book, The Audiophile's Guide, The Speaker, is out. And here we have a much more complex, is that right word? Let's use the word detailed explanation of how all this works and why it works. And the 2 basic things I will tell you are, when you go to the Audiophile's Guide, The Speaker, I give you 2 different ways of setting up the speakers. One is our kind of my favorite, and this is where we talk about speakers disappearing and sound coming to the sides. And that is where the speakers are 8 feet apart or so, towed in ever so slightly, with the listener here, and you're forming an equilateral triangle, okay? And when you do that and you set it up right and you use proper diffusion in the back, which confuses the sound, so your ear says, I don't know what's going on, you get this amazing image. You got to follow the steps, and you got to get the little CD, and step by step, and you will get that effect that you're looking for, which is sound coming to the outside of the speakers. And the reason is because speakers have what we call on-axis and off-axis response. So if the 2 speakers are kind of pointing at you and slightly towed in, and they're a proper amount away from the wall, then the sound hitting you will be I don't want to use the word diffuse because that's going to set people all a jitter, but you can close your eyes and not be able to point to where the speakers are, and the sound field is wider than the speakers, and if you do it right, it's as wide as the room, and it works. So in that, the Audiophile's Guide, the speaker, I show you how to do that, and it's a more detailed version than what you got in the first book. The second part that I tell you about doesn't do that, but a lot of people like that, and that is the very, very wide soundstage that you actually might like. The wide soundstage method that we cover in the book has the speakers very as far out as you can get them without getting too close to the sidewalls and pointed in rather dramatically. So way out, pointed in. Now what happens there is you get nothing to the sides of the speakers. The entire soundstage is just about as wide as the other one, but everything happens between the two speakers. And still, you close your eyes and you have this imaginary holographic soundstage. That's amazing, but nothing extends beyond the speakers. So those are the two basic ways, and I don't have time in these videos to go through it step by step, but if you do have a chance to pick up the Audiophile's Guide, the speaker, or the loudspeaker, I'm sure I was probably, yeah, so the Audiophile's Guide, the loudspeaker, you know, when you have an editor and they go, well, you can't just say the speaker, you could mean you, babbling on, the babbler, yeah, okay. So anyway, if you have a chance, pick that up. Okay, thanks for the question. I'll talk to you later. Bye.